They laughed. Not a nervous laugh. Not an awkward laugh. The kind of laugh that says, "You are nothing." Red wine dripped slowly from the man's jacket, down to the marble floor of one of the most expensive restaurants in the city. Phones came out. Waiters froze. Customers stared. And the man? He didn't shout. He didn't beg. He didn't even wipe the wine off. He simply looked at them and smiled. Because what they didn't know, what no one in that restaurant knew, was that the quiet man they just humiliated was the owner of the entire restaurant chain. And in less than 60 seconds, every single worker involved would lose their job. The restaurant was called Le Chateau Noir, a place where reservations were made weeks in advance, where a single bottle of wine cost more than some people's monthly rent, where rich people came not just to eat, but to be seen. That night, the restaurant was packed. Luxury suits, designer dresses, soft jazz floating through the air. And then, there was him. A man in his early 40s. Plain black jacket. Simple shoes. No watch. No jewelry. He walked in alone. The hostess barely looked up. She scanned him once from head to toe, then sighed. "Do you have a reservation?" she asked, already annoyed. "Yes," the man replied calmly. "Under Daniel." She checked the list. Paused. Her eyes widened just a little. "Yes. Right this way," she said quickly, forcing a smile. But the damage was already done. The waiters had seen the look she gave him first. And to them that look meant only one thing. This man doesn't belong here. Daniel was seated near the center of the restaurant. Not the best table. Not the worst. Just there. Minutes passed. Other guests were welcomed with warm smiles. Menus delivered instantly. Wine poured with elegance. Daniel? Nothing. 5 minutes. 10 minutes. A waiter walked past him twice. Another laughed with a group at the next table. Daniel sat quietly, hands folded, observing everything. Finally, he raised his hand slightly. "Excuse me," he said politely. The waiter stopped, clearly irritated. "Yes," he snapped. "I'd like to order." The waiter rolled his eyes. "Can you wait? We're very busy." Daniel nodded. "Of course." But busy wasn't the real reason. The real reason was simple. They had already decided he wasn't worth their time. Across the room sat Evan. Early 20s. Expensive haircut. Loud voice. The kind of guy who had never been told no in his life. He was there with his friends, laughing, showing off, throwing money around. "Bring us the 1998 Bordeaux," Evan said loudly. "That bottle is very expensive, sir," the waiter replied carefully. Evan smirked. "Then bring two." Laughter erupted at the table. As the waiter turned to leave, Evan's eyes landed on Daniel. He squinted. "Yo, who's that guy?" he whispered, not quietly enough. The waiter shrugged. "No idea." Evan smirked. "Looks lost." The waiter finally returned to Daniel's table. "What do you want?" he asked, clearly annoyed. "I'll have the house special," Daniel said. "And a glass of red wine." The waiter scoffed. "The house special?" "Yes." The waiter scribbled something and walked away laughing. Minutes later, Evan stood up, wine glass in hand. He staggered slightly, pretending to be drunk. As he passed Daniel's table, crash, red wine poured directly onto Daniel's chest. The restaurant went silent. Evan froze for half a second, then burst out laughing. "Oh man," he said loudly. "My bad." His friends laughed. The waiter laughed. One even pulled out his phone. Daniel slowly looked down at his jacket, soaked in wine. Then he looked up. "It's all right," he said calmly. "Accidents happen." That's when Evan leaned closer. "You shouldn't wear cheap clothes to expensive places," he whispered. "People might spill things on you." More laughter. The manager rushed over. "What's going on?" he asked. Evan pointed at Daniel. "This guy walked into me." Daniel said nothing. The manager looked at Daniel, then at Evan's table full of rich, loud guests. He made his choice instantly. "Sir," the manager said to Daniel, "you're causing a disturbance." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "I was sitting down." The manager frowned. "You should apologize and leave." A hush fell over the room. Daniel stood up slowly. "Apologize? Leave." For a moment it looked like he might argue. Instead, he smiled. "Very well," he said softly. Then he reached into his pocket. Daniel pulled out his phone. Not flashy. Not expensive looking. He tapped the screen once, then held it to his ear. "Yes," he said calmly. "I'm here now." Pause. "Please join the call." The manager scoffed. "Sir, you need to." Daniel raised one finger. The phone went on speaker. A voice filled the restaurant. "Good evening, Mr. Hale." Every waiter froze. The manager's face drained of color. Because everyone knew that voice. It belonged to Richard Hale, founder, CEO, billionaire, the owner of Le Chateau Noir. "Yes," Daniel replied. "I'm standing in your flagship restaurant." Silence. "I just had wine poured on me," Daniel continued. "And your staff asked me to apologize." The manager started sweating. "Mr. Hale." Who is that?" Evan whispered. Richard's voice hardened. "Put the manager on the phone." Daniel handed the phone over. The manager's hands were shaking. "Hello, sir." "Are you aware," Richard said coldly, "that the man you humiliated is Daniel Hale?" The room gasped. Daniel Hale, the billionaire's only son, and the silent majority owner of the entire chain. Richard didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "Fire the waiter." The waiter dropped his tray. "Fire the hostess." The hostess began to cry. "Fire the manager." The manager fell to his knees. "And blacklist the guest who poured the wine." Evan's face went pale. "Please," he started. "Now," Richard said. The call ended. Daniel took his jacket off, placed it neatly on the table, then looked around the restaurant one last time. "Kindness," he said quietly, "costs nothing," and walked out. That night, the restaurant closed early. By morning, 3 workers were unemployed. One rich kid learned money doesn't buy respect. And an entire staff learned a lesson they'd never forget. Because you never know who you're standing in front of. The man you ignore, the man you mock, the man you pour wine on, might just be the one who owns the room. This story moved you. If it shocked you, if it reminded you to treat everyone with respect, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Because the next story might be even more unbelievable.